listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is AwardsWatch Podcast episode 345. I'm your executive editor, Ryan McQuade, and joining me today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Hello, hello.
And our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello.
Hello.
If you
I lost all my French. French is gone. We've left. So
kind of tell we're all still trying to, get back to normal life because we all have just returned from the south of France and have left the Cannes Film Festival, and it has been another fun, interesting, film-packed 2 weeks there and in lovely Cannes. And we are here to break it all down and talk about our reactions to the festival, some of our favorite films that we saw there. And then, of course, yes, listeners, we will talk about the Cannes winners and what we think about those and how they might play out towards the end of the year. Guys, when we came back here, or when we were last here, it was 2 weeks ago, we were giving predictions. We were talking about how excited we were for the festival. A lot of buzz, an auteur-driven slate of films. Not more leaning on the European side, less on the American side of filmmaking, which doesn't stop us at all from watching and reading and listening to 2.5 hours worth of films that are in subtitles and just having a grand old time. But between all the screenings, there's parties, there's events, there's long lines, there's a lot of non-sleeping going on, a lot of writing, everything in between. Sophia, for yourself, I'm curious for you how this year's festival was and how the vibe for you felt different than last year and previous years than when you've been at the festival.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of sleeping going on too. I think that's one of the funny things about Cannes. You see a lot of heads bobbing and
during the
there's
films,
some snoring during the films. Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but it's a long festival. A lot of people have jet lag. It's an incredible film festival, and I feel so lucky to have gotten to attend again. And I think that what was interesting was that the word on the ground and the energy there was that this was a Cannes that felt a little soft, not in terms of, what we thought of the lineup going into it, but once films started screening, I think that there wasn't necessarily that kind of euphoric movies are here, like international cinema is here feeling that sometimes you get when you're at film festivals, because I think film festivals, they're really also hype generators. And sometimes it's where like you'll watch a movie later on at home that you watch initially at a film festival and you'll think, was I right about this actually? Like, was it just the environment that I was in that made me really love something so much? And here I think we saw a few auteurs like Asghar Farhadi and Hirokazu Koreeda who delivered films that I think let people down compared to some of their previous films, which I think led people to thinking it was, a weaker slate. But I have to say, the films that I really loved at this festival stand above what I saw at Cannes actually last year, just in terms of the things that I was really passionate about and the films that I love. It's just such a fantastic experience. I think getting to see films that, yes, are in competition, but also films that are in sidebar sections, like first features in the In Certain Regard section, things at Directors Fortnight. So it is, I think, just always really inspiring being there. And there is just no place in the world, I think, as beautiful as the south of France. Telluride comes close. It's a coin flip for me. Like we're very lucky to get to go to those places for film festivals, but it was, I think, a great experience overall. I had a lot of fun with everyone and it's just great, I think. And it's great to be energized when you're leaving a film and just really excited to talk about it and to hear other people's opinions on it. And to know, I think also that in some cases, these are films that we're going to be talking about for the next year, maybe. And in the cases of some of the great films that are going to age for decades to come, we'll be talking about them forever. So yeah, always a joy and a privilege truly to get to go to Cannes. And I had a great time again this year.
Yeah, Erik, there was an underlying sort of sentiment from a lot of people that were there that it was a down year for especially the in competition selection, which, I mean, I don't think you can really complain too much about the films at Cannes if you're at Cannes because you're at Cannes. Like it is such a privilege to be able to go to this film festival, and regardless of how, if not every film is a 5 out of 5 masterpiece, we know that the case is not always true. There are always films in the slate that are not as good as others, but it did seem that there was maybe a back heavy festival. You stayed a little bit longer than myself and Sophia and saw a film or two more than we did, but it did feel like maybe the second week was stronger than the first week. I think that that's maybe a little bit fair to say, even though that there were some highlights from the first week. Overall, there was maybe not as strong as an Uncertain Regard or Director's Fortnight. But I don't know. I want your thoughts on it, Erik, because I thought like overall for myself, I thought it was no different. Maybe looking back on the films that I saw in terms of quality when it averaged out to what was like last year, it just maybe was a little bit more spread out.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely something that we kept hearing, almost that the beginning was very front loaded because we had the Polakowski and Farhadi and Hamaguchi all right, and Koreeda kind of up at the top, and James Gray. And so then it sort of felt like there was a couple of days that felt sort of in the ether.
Mm-hmm.
And then the end was just this massive influx where they decided to schedule all the game movies all like right on top of each other. Rude, absolutely.
I don't know.
Rude.
There was a lot of gay movies in the front half as well too. I mean,
Yeah, but
it was a gay forward festival.
Looking at competition specifically. It was interesting how they were spread out. And yeah, we certainly heard a lot of this is like a lesser year, and I don't know how you could possibly think that just looking at the lineup before even seeing the movies. The directors that we had here are just absolutely phenomenal. I think what happened is the expectation for a lot of these directors, many of them Palm winners, was so high, and it's hard to not compare something new to the last thing that somebody did. So I think there was, and certainly myself included, there was some disappointment and letdown from some of the titles. I was not a fan of the Farhadi at all. I thought it was pretty terrible, but he has a high bar.
One of the lowest rated films of the fest.
High bar. Yeah. It was. So is the Koreeda. Mm-hmm. And so I think something kind of strange was happening that I didn't really see coming, and not specifically the quality of anything, but some of the responses became, I don't know, maybe sort of reviews by way of advocacy versus, anything else. And, I say this as somebody who did not like Paper Tiger. That movie received an incredible response from a lot of people that are in a very specific echelon of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And, his was a very, very, very late edition. And it was only one of 2 American films in competition. And I think there was sort of this feeling to rally around it, that I know it, again, this isn't, to just shit on James Gray. I'm pretty middle of the road with him for his films. I don't really dislike or really, really like most. That kind of just hit me right in the middle. And I just felt like that was a movie that this specific group of people decided to really buoy as something that they needed to champion. And, when it didn't win anything at the awards, it just sort of made me feel like, okay, come this fall, this is going to be something that they kind of lift up.
Yeah.
But then the festival ended with like 3 of my absolute favorites, just like obsessively, insanely good. And I just think it was a great festival. It's always a great festival. It's the same as when people say, "Oh, this wasn't a very good year for movies." I'm like, actually, it was, it was, it always is.
Those people just want to be contrarians. I agree with you. The stuff that when I was starting to put together, because I always put my films in an ongoing ranking, to kind of just make sure I remember what I watched throughout the year. And when I had a film up at the top, just kind of as a placeholder or something I saw previously in the year. And then I was like, well, no, that film that I saw at Cannes was better. And no, that film is definitely better. And no, that's the masterpiece that I think that is of the festival. And then so I had four films over it by the end of the fest. So if I saw four films in a span of a week and a half that are better than the films that I've already liked, then that's a pretty successful festival. And then there were other films that sort of ranked within the top echelon of films. There were obviously films that were near the bottom. There were films near the bottom last year were some of the worst films I saw of the year that were at Cannes. I'm looking at you, Splitsville and Alpha. You know what I mean? So it happens. And I think Eric, you kind of hit the nail right on the head. Is that last year when we had people like Wes Anderson and Richard Linklater and other American filmmakers, that there were more of them there. And then so there was less, I think, forgiveness of that is the only one we have. There was only two. It was like him, Gray and Iris Axe, sort of the English language films here. And it's like we've got to rally to these films because they're the only one. The trades were running these constant articles about like why studios aren't there and why is this Cannes Film Festival so international film focused like it hasn't been for the last 78 years before. And so it was a bit ridiculous. And I do think that there is this like since Anora's won and the festival has been so championing, like you hear Terry Vermeer just like talk about how much he loves Sean Baker and he loves Anora. There's this whole thing now with the addedness of like the Palm winner has 2 out of the last 6 or 7 years gone on to win Best Picture. It's such in the awards race for American films not to be a part of it. I do think that there's a little bit of that in there. And back to your point as well, Eric, I do think that the section of New York critics, I'm just going to say that that's exactly who they were very high on this. A lot of fangirling about James Gray. And that's okay because we see a lot of times people have their blinders for their certain directors. I think they're,
I'm guilty. I'm not, trying to pretend I'm above that.
I was higher on, the Phoenician Scheme last year, and I'm definitely more of a Wes Anderson fan. But that doesn't mean that I think Wes Anderson was going to win a prize last year. There was this, sort of enormousness around that, in terms of different conversations. But I do think that, overall there were days if a movie like that doesn't hit, or the Farhadi, or the Pedro Almodovar film, which people thought was a little bit lesser than his usual output, or, or Correada or whoever, if those auteurs that usually hit on a consistent basis aren't hitting at their usual averages, then it becomes like, okay, the other filmmakers that, are more newer or haven't been around as much, or that we hope there's a lot of hope around those filmmakers that are left to sort of knock things out of the park to make the average tend to go back to what it was before. Personally for me, I'd say like the batting average for In Competition was probably a little bit slightly lesser than last year, but I last year did not walk out of here with a 5-star film, breaking my own rule. This year I did. So every year is different. It's its own beast. I did think that there was a lot of interesting stuff out of Uncertain Regard. I actually think Uncertain Regard had maybe the most talked about film of the entire festival outside of competition. And we'll talk about that with Club Kid. And so it gives a chance for discovery. And that's what this film festival has always been about, is to discover films. It's not always just like, I think the fall festivals are really where you can bank on more of the proven names, especially American names. And we will see that later this fall. But overall, I think that once again, you can't complain too much when you're in the south of France watching films while the rest of the world is not being able to do it. It is still a select few people. It's what My
Not
dad
select
always,
enough.
it's what my dad used to always say when we get concert tickets or go to a sporting event. You're in the building. Just be grateful that you're in the building, because there are millions of other people in the world that are not in the building and not get to do this on a yearly basis. But Sophia, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, quick point on the advocacy piece. I think for me, Cannes is actually a great place where you can start to advocate for films. And for me, like a James Gray film with movie stars that is being distributed by a company like Neon, that is not where my advocacy is going to go, no matter how much I like said film. I think that that's a little bit misplaced. Like, I think that there are many films here from filmmakers who, it's their debut. Like, if you
Yeah.
think of a film like Benimana, which won the Camera d'Or, that's a fabulous film, and it's also the first Rwandan film to premiere in a section at Cannes. So I just don't, I think that that is an example of a film that you can advocate for, something that you see that you really like that doesn't have distribution yet. La Gradiva, beautiful film that a lot of people really loved. That's in a different section of the festival too. That was a Critics Week film. So it's not, I think when I was seeing a lot of that on James Gray in particular, I was thinking like you can like this film, but to claim that it's some great travesty that he wasn't invited back for awards, I think we need to place our energy elsewhere when it
James,
comes to
he's
the
doing
films that
fine.
can. He's going to
His
be fine.
Little Odessa was just announced in the Criterion Collection. The guy's always gonna have people behind him. Like he's fine. He's not struggling. You know what I mean? You're
That was
absolutely
his
right.
first film at Cannes.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So
I
and
think he's made 6 appearances.
he said 6 or 7 appearances at Cannes and multiple times in competition. He's not.
Mhm.
He's gonna be fine. Like somebody will pay the tab at dinner for James Gray. Okay, like it'll be okay. Like he's and so that's why it's a little baffling how we and also to just want to push things and narratives already in May. But let's talk about some films that we did love. Let's really get away from our feelings on the overall festival and what we've seen. We'll talk about a little bit more of that maybe towards the awards parts of this. But favorite films of the fest. We were there. I don't even know how many films you guys saw. Probably at least 20 plus for all of us here, and a lot of good, a lot of in the middle, a lot of great. Sophia, do you want to highlight 2 or 3 films for yourself that you really want to talk about as some of the favorite films that you saw at the fest?
Yeah, so a really funny thing happened this year, which is oddly the same thing that happened last year. I got very lucky and somehow selected the 3 films that would end up being my 3 favorite competition films for my reviews heading into the festival. So those were Ryusuke Hamaguchi's All of a Sudden, Minotaur, and Fatherland. So I'll start with All of a Sudden. This was the film that when I saw it just totally knocked me out. I cried writing my review, which when that happens, I know that we have a gem on our hands that's just going to stay with me emotionally for a long time. And Virginia Fira and Tao Okamoto, our Best Actress winners at the festival, are absolutely incredible in this film. They are mirror characters of each other, which I think is very difficult to execute in a screenplay and really challenging also to carry out. It is about a woman named Murray Lou, who is the director of an elder care facility, and she is this strong advocate for a care technique called humanitude, which is all about just centering the person and giving, people with in cognitive decline a way to live with dignity. And it is, I think, just it's perfect ground for Hamaguchi. And as the story unfolds, it is 3 hours and 15 minutes. I think that he earns every single minute of that runtime. Like you feel like you really get to know these women. So as Mary Lou meets Mari, this other woman, they have like the same exact name, which is also great. It's a great detail. She is a theater director who is in town from Kyoto, and she's dying from cancer. And as you can imagine, I think you would think it would be very sad dealing with topics like Alzheimer's and cancer, but I found it so life affirming and just a beautiful reminder of, the joy of the pain and joy of being alive. And I think what's incredible is that beauty wins out in the end. Hamaguchi knows that we're in this horrible hellscape of a world, but clinging to the things that are most important and relationships, that's always going to be what matters. And I think that this year, we're already seeing, I think, some cynical responses to the film, but I think you don't approach it that way. Try to leave your cynicism at the door and understand that, like, Hamaguchi, I think, is a very sincere storyteller, and that's what has always worked for me about his films. So that one was a major highlight of the festival. It came very early. Um, and then for Fatherland, this also came very early. This is Pavel Pawlikowski's follow-up to Cold War, which is one of my all-time favorite films. This is a really short film. So Hamaguchi of that long run time, Pawlikowski of 82 minutes, including credits. What a thrill, what a joy it is in this crisp, stunning black and white by Lucas Zal. He's back. I think this is like, it looks like something that, I said this in my review, but it looks like an old David Lean print that was found and resurrected, like from the time. It's gorgeous. Hans Zischler plays Thomas Mann, and Sandra Hüller plays his daughter, Erica. And it is really just about their journey through Germany as he's receiving 2 literary prizes. So they go to Frankfurt in the West and Weimar in the East. And you learn a lot about their relationship, a lot about his feelings of art and politics. And it is a really beautiful film. I think that, it has insanely elegant quality. It almost has a chilliness to it at the beginning, and then by the end, it gets very emotional, and I was very moved by it, especially with the Bach organ piece you get at the end. It's just stunning. So that one, another favorite, and then my last one, Andrei Zvyagintsev Minotaur. This one absolutely throttled me. This was actually the only film of the festival where I walked out thinking like, oh my God, I have the feeling. The feeling is back. I think it's so rare to like leave a movie and just be like, oh, I feel alive. It's like how I felt when I saw like One Battle last year, Sentimental Value last year, where you just are like, I'm in the hands of a master storyteller. And this is a really complex tale that I'm going to be thinking about for a very long time. It is so far from obvious. I'm like shocked that people are calling it obvious. I'm like, I don't think you were paying attention. Maybe you missed parts of the movie, or maybe you got a little sleepy. Because I think that, on its surface, it is just a story of an affair. It is, a remake of Claude Chabrol's The Unfaithful Wife, and also of, you look at Unfaithful, the Adrian Lyne film. There is that affair plot, but it's so much deeper than that. It's about this CEO named Gleb who is, just like the Greek myth of the Minotaur, he is tasked with selecting 14 citizens to draft for a military operation at the border. This is of course, it's set in 2022. So it's about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And I think that it is just so complex. It is a really remarkable feat of political storytelling. And it's, yeah, for me, like it's a toss-up for the best film I saw at the festival, but I feel like Minotaur is the one that I'm going to be speaking of advocacy, advocating for all year. My favorite film of the festival. So those 3, I felt like I was like, oh my God, these are all great films. Really, really lucky to have gotten to see all of those.
Some of the best films of the festival, my 5 out of 5 was all of a sudden, which I just think I agree with you, Sophia, is a massive film of real empathy, and I think you have to really buy into that film. There is a scene, I think, that will either be your favorite scene of the year, or it will be maybe the most annoying scene of the year for you, which involves a whiteboard, which I have heard from, and you have heard from, and Erik has heard from so many people that it's like that scene either blew them away, or that was when they completely checked out of the thing. I think that if you give yourself over to this film, much like you'd have to give yourself over to any film in general, you'll have to understand that like Hamaguchi is not trying to manipulate you in any sort of way. That's not the kind of filmmaker he is. And Fatherland is again, Pavel Pawlikowski, one of our best director winners here at the festival. Just another wonderful Beautiful film from him. He continues to just be one of the strongest directors that we have when he decides to give us a new film. 8 years in the making. This was sort of like I guess like what I read was like a secondary project almost that came out of like another project falling apart. But it's like, okay, well, you made a masterpiece out of out of your backup plan. Like, congratulations there. And then Minotaur again, another film that I really liked and responded well. I wouldn't say that it is like simplistic in any way. I think that it's speaking a lot to the political issues and sort of the abuse of power and how that abuse of power from the top has a trickling effect on, there's a scene involving the I think it's one of the best scenes that we saw at Cannes, where a group of the soldiers are being sent off in a bus, and a mother is just, he focuses the camera on her crying, and meanwhile this family's flying, to another destination. It's really just the juxtaposition of what an abuse of power can be, especially in that world. And so I thought it was a very good film. Erik, do you have any thoughts on those films before you talk about yours?
Oh yeah, I mean, I loved them all.
Okay, wrap it up. Let's move on to the next.
Yep. I
I'm
mean,
just kidding.
I'm a
I'm just
huge
kidding.
fan of All of a Sudden, and it's so funny because, like we talked about, the scheduling of some of these are wild. If you don't see them, the day before, you
You
get
watched it
this
at 8 a.m., right?
not just at 8 a.m., but getting home at 3 after the club kid party, and then waking up at 6 to do
I
tickets.
was worried for you.
Yeah, and I'm like, and now I'm entering a 3 hour and 16-minute movie at 8 in the morning. And
We all have choices, folks. We all make
I was
choices.
unfazed because I loved every single
That's
second of
great.
it.
That's great.
Every bit of it. I adore that movie. It has a lot of endings. There's like 4 endings in this movie
It
where
does. It
you
does.
you
It
you
does.
think that we're done, like music swells up and you get this, you're like, oh, this is a great place to end, and you're like, nope, we still got to wrap up with the kid and the other things, and you're like, all right, we're gonna keep going a little bit. I didn't mind though so much because the ride of that movie had already been so absolutely rewarding. I loved Minotaur as well. I loved Fatherland. And for myself, I chose to write about, no shock, all of the gay movies, with still more to come, even as we are recording this on Sunday after the festival. But I was fortunate enough to be able to see The Man I Love and Coward early, which was really helpful to be able to get a review out at embargo time and not, later when it's more difficult to try and like put your thoughts together urgently. That was really nice. And two of my favorites of the festival. Coward was my favorite of the festival. It was a surprise in the sense that it's only Lucas Stone's third film. I'm very, very in the can for Lucas Stone as a filmmaker. Close was, I think, my favorite of 2022, but he also has a feeling of sadness pretty much in his films. And without giving too much away, there is a sort of corner was turned with Coward in a way that was so surprising. And then The Boys won a shared Best Actor award. That was absolutely a huge surprise, but a wonderful welcome one. The Man I Love, the new Ira Sachs. You can always count on Ira Sachs to do 90 minutes, absolutely efficient, and do it beautifully. I loved it. I thought Ron Malik was incredible. His singing is absolutely heartbreaking and beautiful. And then La Bola Negra, which was the last thing I saw.
We missed it, both myself and Sophia.
Holy cow. What a movie.
I'm excited to see it.
Yeah.
I think you'll love it. It is an insane melange of styles.
I love that.
I yeah, Evita, The Hours, Beau Travail. Put all those
Oh, okay.
together,
Okay.
and that is what
So
La
I
Bola
am gonna
Negra
like
is.
it.
So we are going to
Yeah.
see this, I tell you right then.
The
Okay.
first 20 minutes I was like, I'm watching Evita. This is incredible. Just like war and the most insane horn section of score that you can think of. You're just waiting for them to like burst into song. And music is a very, very big part of the film, but it is not a musical at all. But it could be. This movie could absolutely have been a musical. But it's gorgeous, and Netflix picked it up, and I'm really glad for that. It's going to get a proper enough theatrical release, and
they'll carry it throughout the entire festival.
yeah, they're going to have it all year.
Run. Yeah.
And as long as there aren't any scary old tweets by anybody, but I don't know, this cast could have some very, very shady comments.
I feel like they're scrubbing social media right now as we speak.
I hope so.
I want to hear what Carla Sofia Gascon thinks of the Black Ball.
I do too. I think that's the key to this whole thing working.
Bring her back.
Outside of competition and main section, and certainly keeping it gay, Gym Queen was absolutely a riot. Also, an early screening, 8 a.m. And sometimes 8 a.m. is the right time for talking buttholes and very large butt plugs. Sometimes it is, and certainly in this situation, it was.
It's what you want at breakfast.
I had a great time at Gym Queen.
Exactly. I mean, it is absolutely that meme, because most of that audience was just a bunch of squealing homos, and then there was like a few girls, and then like two straight guys, and it was great. It was so fun. Great movie though. A fantastic allegory on conversion therapy and AIDS in a way that is absolutely hilarious and crazy, and I cannot believe that I just saw this. And it's sort of almost like Fritz the Cat kind of way back in the day, where this animated film had a full theatrical release, and it's animals having sex, and absolutely just, it is X-rated as you can get. And it kind of made me think of that a little bit. So I hope somebody has the balls to pick this up and do something with it, and not simply just play
Janus,
all the gay festivals.
It feels like a Janus Films kind of thing.
It feels like a Janus film.
Yeah, Janus, all right, sure. And that's exactly why I said it. There you go, Erik. Yeah. Well, I of those films, I only have seen Coward, and I thought it was quite beautiful. Lucas Stone's films, I've been a little bit on the lukewarm side of them. They haven't really hit me as much as much as they have Erik. But I thought that this might be the best film that he's made so far. And I just thought it was really elegant and really beautiful. There's a couple of scenes.
It's kind of like Morris. It reminded me of Morris a little bit.
That is a good comparison to it. There are a couple of just really knockout scenes that do involve like music and theater, that I thought were really well staged. I thought those two performances are so good, and very well done. It's like, All Quiet on the Western Front meets like a cabaret. I mean, there's a lot going on with it, and I really responded to it. Sophia, did you?
I mean, all those
like
Coward, Man 11, La Bola Negra all utilize music and performance as a conduit for expression, and to be able to, I mean, in Coward, speak out. I mean, these boys are having young men are having a secret relationship, but they're performing on stage, which allows them to be romantic with each other on stage,
Be
because
open. Yeah.
the men are playing women, like, because there are no women here. So it is, oh God, I
Yeah.
can't wait to see
Yeah.
it again.
Sophia.
That's what I really liked about it, is it felt like it was really honoring this kind of traditional spirit of theater and performance, like, you know, having like men in the women's roles like you would have found, you know, in a Shakespearean theater. I thought that was really beautiful, and just this idea of, you know, having this performance to boost morale in wartime, like that's an idea I really responded to. And I think that the two actors that won Best Actor are truly great. Like I just felt for them the entire movie. And there's a scene near the end that did really break me and make me cry. I thought I was going to cry more. But that's not a bad thing, I think, at all. Like it is, I think, it's much more, I think, for people who maybe weren't as high on Lucas Done's other films. Like this is one that I think is a bit more controlled in its emotion than the other ones, and it feels a little bit less. Like I'm not going to call those emotionally manipulative, but I think that's, you know, those were some of the criticisms levied at some of his other films, and I don't think this one is really, you can call it that really at all. It feels much more, I don't know, it has this sophistication to it that did remind me of, you know, something that felt a little bit more, I don't know, like something like a Merchant Ivory film, really.
But very
It's
more
an incredibly
mature.
mature
Yeah.
piece of work.
Yeah.
I think so.
For a very young filmmaker, that's for sure. I'm going to throw out a couple of films that I obviously endorse every one of those films. Like, there's not been a bad film. I will say that I will probably mention a film here that might be controversial amongst the group, but I'm going to start with Club Kit from Jordan Firstman, who I think that this is the surprise of the festival, to be honest with you. This landed a record deal, $17 million purchase from A24, and it deserves it and then some. Firstman is a first time filmmaker, an actor comedian, making a film where he is essentially running what is it? He's a club kid. He's running like
He's a promoter. He's
a promoter for a nightclub,
party
for parties, and he's been doing it for about 10 years. One night he has a drug trip and has sex with a female to impress a guy, essentially, and that deed spawns a 10-year-old who shows up on his door a decade later, and he has to kind of grow up within her own eyes. Erik coined it as "gay Big Daddy." And I haven't been able to get that out of my head.
David Ehrlich said that before I did, but yeah,
but
it is
either one of
like,
you
it is a little bit like that.
Or Kramer versus Kramer a little bit too. I think that's what I thought of.
Sure. I no, totally. I think that it's a lot funnier than both of those films, and it's surprisingly so. It has a lot more heart. Yeah, Kramer versus Kramer, known laugh riot. But
well, I'm just
like,
talking about
myself.
You know, an ineptitude of a dad.
Yeah,
making food for his kid. Like
yes.
he takes him to Balthazar, which is just an incredible New York joke.
Exactly.
Like that's what I meant more so. Of
No. I don't disagree with you on the comparison.
And it's a courtroom drama too.
Yes, it becomes a courtroom drama by the end.
Yep.
I think that what is so surprising is the amount of heart that's within it. The maturity of Firstman as a first-time filmmaker. Alex Coco is his producer, who has mostly worked with Sean Baker, and you can very much feel those vibes throughout the film. It has a wonderful supporting cast, including Diego Calva, who I think is really good in the film alongside Firstman. And who is the actor that plays the 10-year-old? Do we know his name? If y'all can look this up, I thought he was absolutely fantastic.
Feature film debut.
And a feature film debut.
A lot of good debuts this year.
Yes. And so just a film that I think we saw.
Reggie Absalom.
Thank you, Sophia. We saw this at an 8 a.m. screening after the day after the premiere. Erik was at the premiere and went to the party. And by the end, I was kind of a mess. I thought that it really handled all of it, stuck the landing beautifully. And I think what's going to be so great is for people to see this in theaters. I think it'll play really well. And yeah, I know that it was a massive bidding war to get it, but I think it ended up. I think we all can agree it ended up probably in the right place. I think A24, who didn't have a film here at all, goes and
Yeah.
picks up this film, and it's a good pickup for them. So obviously, Club Kit there. I want to talk about maybe the most insane film in competition that I've ever heard of in a long while, and that's Hope. Nahong Jin, a film that I had no idea what this movie was going to be about. And it's a giant monster film with unfinished CGI, supposedly, but it is a nonstop action film for
Hopefully
about
it's unfinished.
hopefully it's he said in the
He
press
said at the
conference
press conference,
that it's
yeah,
not
that
finished.
sound and VFX are in the works.
So it's
Yeah.
a 2 hour and 40-minute film. The first hour of this is essentially just a nonstop car chase. And then there's other action giant set pieces throughout it. I had no idea, like I said, once again, what this was. And I was thoroughly on the edge of my seat. It was like a 9 o'clock screening that we saw this thing, and I was like glued to it. I think that it's a lot of fun. I don't think that it's just like a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination. I just was like, you could feel the influences of Korean cinema. You can feel the influences of American cinema and big action films. And Erik was mentioning all the slow motion that's in it, maybe a little bit too much. But
The Michael
nonetheless,
Bay of it all was
there was a
quite
lot of that as well. But I do think that it's so much fun and so elaborate, and there's just stuff involving horses and stuff involving cars, and you can tell most of these actors are doing their own stunts, and it really, I think that I think it's going to play really well. Neon's got a little bit of a hit, I think, maybe secretively on their hands here, and I'd be interested to see the differences in the finished CGI and sound, as opposed to here. I think it has a great score to go alongside it as well, and this movie just moved at such a great pace for me. I know that that's not the case for everybody. I know that it was a pretty divisive film, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of an interesting film to put in the middle. It was one of the films in the middle of the section as well too, where it's like not many people knew what it was. Supposedly, this is. I mean, the movie ends with a cliffhanger, so we will supposedly see more if this becomes a hit. But which I think it will. But very, very interesting way of using American actors for this movie too, or not American actors, English language actors.
Yeah, there's
I
only
didn't even know Taylor Russell was in it. Like that was the other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I had a blast with it, and then the last film, which is our big prize winner, was Christian Munchu's Fjord, which I think a lot of people were going into this festival expecting it to walk away with some sort of prize, not just because of Munchu's reputation, but because of the 2 stars involved. And I didn't really know too much about it other than that family photo that they released. This is my second favorite film of the festival, and a film that I think is I think it, a lot of people have already started to compare it to Anatomy of a Fall because of its courtroom drama nature, because of the type of film that it is. I think that it exceeds that because it's having even broader and bigger discussion about extremism, and it makes it a very timely film for why I understand the jury went and picked it as our Palme d'Or winner. This is about a half Romanian Norwegian family that moves back to Norway from Romania, and the children are taken by child services after there is allegations of abuse, and it is about the 2 parents played by Renata Reinsva and Sebastian Stan fighting to get their children back, and in the midst of a very liberal system that is in Norway. And there have been a lot of discussions by people that have seen it and haven't seen this film already, and will be so. But I do think that this is Neon's big film, and after watching it, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I thought that, I wrote about it in my review up on the website, and I was kind of blown away by it, sort of peeling back the layers of this as I was thinking about it too, and the subtlety within the 2 leads' performances, as well as then the broader things that Munchu has already stated and will continue to talk about. And I listened to a lot of the press conference, and I think that he's made a film that's in concert with his other films, but is very much like a movie for the moment, to understand that like we are living in very dangerous times, and we have to, either side of this, of the extremism. In this case, it's a side that we normally don't get to see, which is the abuse within a liberal system as opposed to a conservative system. I mean, like a lot of that was sort of last year with like an Eddington, for an example, to be the other side of that. And I do think that this is a much better film, in my opinion, than that. And really, really interesting also discussion about differences in language and culture, and how one can interpret that, interpret one's own viewpoint of the world. And so I thought that this was a wonderful film. And I know that we all liked it to various degrees here. And it's definitely one of the highlights towards the end of the festival. And, that Christian Mungiu, man, he knows how to make a movie. And Renata Reinsfeld, if you got her in your film in competition, folks, you're probably doing really well for yourself at this point. She's the queen of Cannes, and she showed it here again. And that leads us into, I don't know if you guys want to speak about any of those films and say anything. Yeah, Erik, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just want to echo how much I loved Fjord, and honestly, Eddington is the great comp for it, because whether you like that or not, they're both obviously are approaching challenging its audience very differently. But especially with something like Fjord, the audience for this is going to be a progressive leftist festival going audience that watches foreign language films. So this worry, which I use quotes for, that people are saying that that somehow right-wing media is going to get a hold of this movie and champion it. They can't read. They're not going to watch this movie. It's not going to happen. Don't like.
Once they see it's a European co-production.
Oh,
yeah, they're not going to touch
they're
it.
creating
it's a European movie telling us that liberals are wrong. That's the goal here. Yeah, it's going to be fucking Tucker Carlson thing. Good
very
Lord.
much so. But yeah, it is asking you to really challenge what you feel is right and wrong, alliances, and it's not. I think it's really dismissive to say that it's simply, here's a movie where we are sort of forced to feel sympathetic or side with this religious extremist idea, which is, I mean, it's not that much, but it is. But it's not that much. But it is very challenging, and I think that's one of the greatest things that we can be a part of when we're watching something. It's great to have confirmation bias on everything that we believe in and enjoy and support. That's great. And most of these movies already kind of do that for us. Again, a festival audience is a very specific group of people that are generally going to be already kind of in the tank for progressive ideas, and this is really, really challenging that, but in a way that I felt and was very, very moved by, because I related to a great deal of the things that were happening in a way that I was, I don't know, I was allowed to be really kind of removed from it and watch it and not feel, I don't know, not feel like I was being judged or targeted as a left-leaning person, because the progressives in this film are absolute fucking ding-dongs. And they're the real extremists we met along the way. It's fascinating, and I love that. I love the idea that the effort to be so progressive and so forward thinking turns into a really terrible, oppressive belief. That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I loved that.
No, I think it's absolutely fascinating, and it's what makes the film so thematically rich. Sophia?
Yeah, I love Fjord much more than Eddington. I'm gonna say that.
I didn't
Um,
also mean that as like literally they're the
no,
same.
I know.
I
I'm
just
just
think that
joking.
it is very interesting, not to cut you off here, Sophia. I do think that it is very interesting. The people that went to bat for that film are some of the people that are against this film, if that makes sense. So that's why I think the comparison's very interesting. But anyway, go ahead.
I think that this is going to be the movie that's actually the most fun to talk about throughout
Mhm.
the film festival like season because I think as it plays, it's going to keep playing at festivals all season, and then when it comes out in theaters, like this is just going to be one I think that is really exciting and engaging to just talk about. And right after you see it, you think like, "Oh my gosh, like how did you feel about this character? How did you feel about this moment in the screenplay or when they were in this particular scene?" And it is one of those, I think, thorny, like complicated movies that I think like does somehow like sometimes veer a little bit into like not it doesn't become, I think though, like a more like a preachy movie, which I think is what's good about it. It doesn't get into that territory, which I really appreciated. But it's a movie definitely where you're going to leave and think like, ooh, how do I feel about this person or how do I feel about that character? And I think those are always fun. And yeah, Renata Reinsve, her performance, I think is so great. She is the queen of subtlety, and here, like, she broke my heart, and it's totally different from what we've seen her do in the past. So yeah, I really liked Fjord. I'm gonna let you all have hope. I'll let you have it.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
No,
Yep.
I
Sure.
here's my short thing on Hope.
And then I'll talk a little bit about it
I
too.
had a
Okay.
ton of fun and I gave it 4 stars. It's a terrible movie and it's absolutely dumb,
It's fun. Dumb,
but
big dumb fun.
but it is big dumb fun and the environment was a lot of
It
fun
was
to be a part of.
it was just
But
so batshit
it is a
insane.
dumb movie and I
Yeah.
don't want to watch anymore and I certainly don't need to watch an updated version with better
Oh,
visual
I can't
effects.
wait
I
to
will
watch it
not be
again.
devoting
No.
2
Oh, I
hours
can't wait
No.
to
and
watch it
40
again.
minutes to that. I will not do it.
I do
Can't
think
wait.
it'll do well, and I think that people will connect with it, and people already are clearly,
It's
but
going to
it
do
just
well at
reminded
TIFF.
me, it was like when I had to babysit kids growing up and they wanted me to watch them play video games. Like that's what it felt like. There were just
Hell,
no
hell
characters in
yeah.
this movie. There was just like nothing story-wise for me to grab onto. And the CGI, of course, just made that all the more worse. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't need a Michael Bay movie. I'm okay. But again, glad everybody else has something that they really love.
It's still better than a lot of the films I saw. I
Oh,
was
it's
like,
not the worst film I saw.
no,
No,
no, no, no, no.
that's a movie called The Unknown.
Is that all of our
Okay.
worst
See,
favorite, least favorite film of the festival for sure? Like, not
now
even
I
close?
actually want to talk about the things that we really hated because there is
Oh, I
also
didn't.
a great
Oh, sorry.
enjoyment to that.
Mhm.
And also, I'm not no shade to anybody, but I'm not a walkout of a movie kind of person, especially if I have traveled 10,000 miles and spent an equal amount of money to
Yeah.
watch these movies. I can't really like
If you want to walk out at
fathom
something at
that.
home, I can understand. But like at Cannes, like
But at the same time, your time is precious.
that
And
is
if there's
true.
another movie you can catch,
Oh, sure.
Sure.
If that's the case, if it's a conflict, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I do think it's really fun to sit through an absolutely terrible, rancid movie,
Yeah.
and
it is kind of
then
funny.
talk about it.
Yeah.
It can be, and certainly The Unknown was. There were a couple that I was just
You
like,
guys are in the
what
middle of
are
that.
we doing here?
I was writing notes for The Unknown because I put up the review up on the website. And at a certain point, Erik just looked at me and was like, "What's wrong with you?" Because I was putting my notebook away because I was just sitting there watching this in absolute like dread and horror because it's such a terrible movie. And the scenes that, because when we walked in The Unknown, we said there's going to be a scene with the, because it's a body switch film, with Leia Seydoux and another actor and a male actor. And we said there's going to be a mirror scene where she's looking at herself, and then there's going to be, and I knew for a fact that at that point, once the sort of premise about them switching bodies and and sort of passing this on and on and on, I knew that there was going to be a sex scene. And at that point, when the sex scene started happening, one, we lost our great friend Christina Yearling Biro. In that moment, she just was like, to point, to your point, Sophia, she's like, I'm up, I'm out of here, I'm not doing this shit anymore. So Christina has better willpower than I guess the rest of us. But then I just put my notebook down and I was just like, what the fuck is this movie? Like it really, it's such a great, interesting premise, and they do absolutely nothing with it. And I really I understand what you're saying, Eric, like a great movie and like just sitting there in absolute dread watching a really bad movie. But I was so close to walking out. Because it went nowhere. It went nowhere. And it was so fucking long. It was 2.5 hours. And we have been seeing enough 2.5 hour films and losing sleep in time. I was just like, my God, please say something with this thing. Like,
I'll just say I had more fun with its awfulness than like Butterfly Jam, which was which I just was like angry and wish I had not ever seen. I don't regret having watched The Unknown. I just had a great time hating it.
I mean, the hardest I laughed at any movie at Cannes, like even more than the genuine like comedy and things like Gym Queen or Club Kid, which I really liked, is when you have the most deranged needle drop I've maybe ever heard, which is I Feel It Coming by The Weeknd, and it is diegetic music in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It fully took me out. This is a very strange movie that I just don't understand like any kind of love for it. It's just only gotten worse in my mind since the time has passed.
I'll never be able to listen to that song. Not that I listen to it anyway, but like if that comes on, like I'm just going to think of this stupid movie. So maybe that's a point in its favor. I don't know. I forgot to mention in terms of positive films and a movie that I think we all liked, and it'll be out in a couple of weeks. But Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, just one of the best films. So the opening film for the UCR.
Winner of the Queer Palm.
The winner of the Queer Palm, which then was given to actress Gillian Anderson. She went up there and accepted it. And it was just like, well, of course, like it's.
Well, she read the speech from Jane Schoenbrunn, which was really great, and I loved her. I can't wait to hold the queer palm in my queer palm. I loved that. So that was like so cool.
Just like a really great film to see with that crowd too. Everybody would just loved it. And my review up on the website, I loved
that was
it.
A hoot. I love that movie.
It's so much fun. And okay, well. We talk about the awards. We transition over to that, and this jury led by director Park, and I gotta say, didn't see a lot when we went to screenings and stuff. I didn't see as much photos of them together. Maybe it's just my timeline. I didn't see many of the jury together a lot, unless it was a couple of galas, but. Not at every, they obviously saw every film in competition. And it was very unique how they come back together. Director Park was saying like they came back together every 3 or 4 films and kind of discussed as the festival was going on. So there was constant communication between all of them. But our Palm winner was Fjord by Christian Mungiu, the 7th film in a row by Neon. If anybody's mad about that, this is when they walked in with, they didn't purchase it. That this is, I think this has happened the last couple of years where they've just had the film already. Because Honora, they had that one. I think they bought it was just an accident, but the Grand Prix, they had sentimental value, last year already. So, and the Grand Prix this year was Minotaur, the best director, was a 3-way tie between the Los Aves for La Boda Negra and what was it, Paulo Pawlikowski for Fjord. I'm sorry, Fatherland. And then we had 2 more ties. The 2 actors for Coward won Best Actor, and the two actors for All of a Sudden, or actresses for All of a Sudden, won Best Actress. And then the screenplay went to A Man of His Time, which I was the only one that saw it and don't understand why the fuck that thing won screenplay. Like, it is the
No, because everyone thought that Swan Arlo was gonna be the Best Actor winner when they got called back. Because we played that whole game of like who got called back and what does it mean and which award are they going to win. But I would pull back from calling the acting wins ties. I think it's a little different than what the director was, because it's two different films. I don't mind at all the idea of, two co-leads being both celebrated, but like it was kind of crazy that this jury seemed like they really could not make up their mind. Because we've certainly had plenty of previous acting winners where you could have had the co-leads win. Like, why didn't Kate Blanchett win with Rooney Mara for Carol? Like, just like go ahead and do it if you're gonna do it.
Or instead of,
sure, exactly. But it's this jury really seemed like they had a hard time making up their mind.
I felt like more unity rather than they wanted to fight. You know what I mean? For the things, like, it seemed like a lot of that was just like, we all agreed on things. And when you sort of just agree on things.
And Demi Moore was just happy to be there. So
it really did seem like she was just like, thanks for the invite. I can't believe that I was here. And it's like, okay. But
she did a great can a few years ago.
She did.
But like every red carpet was her like running off from the group to take like her solo pictures. And then they'd have to keep pulling her back to take group pictures. And I'm like, okay, sure.
It wasn't as unified when Kate was on it. And I just remember that whole group was like, I remember everybody just all together, and last year's especially too. And so it did feel a little bit like I didn't see them nearly as much as I usually see them, like, when there's these red carpets. But let's talk about Fjord. I mean, we love
quickly,
this.
The Dreamed Adventure also won the jury prize. So that's the like third place aside from director.
A movie that
the absolute out of nowhere win.
One of the worst films, I think, was like, it was like the last film of the festival. So many people hated it. And so of course that means that it got that prize as well.
Well, I mean, the thing about that, and I mentioned this in chat, it's the only film directed by a woman that won something.
That is true.
So I think there was certainly, when a group is making these choices, and how many times they can reward a film twice, which is they can only do that with one film. I think they were making some very conscious choices. About that.
It also helps having an internationally Academy Award winning female director on the jury as well to help.
Do you think Chloe Zhao liked The Dream Adventure?
That sounds literally like the title of her next movie. Like, I don't know, like that sounds like her. You know what I mean? Like it's
we don't know what she liked, but I think that there was. I really loved that she presented Best Actress, because I just like when you think of her movie, I thought like, this is such a Chloe Zhao type of experience, and the way it talks about death and how she's learning to be a death doula now. It just feels like something that would be right up her alley. So I loved that she was the one to give that prize out.
Absolutely,
yes.
But like I said, Fjord is our Palm winner. And so I'm kind of, and obviously Minotaur is our Grand Prix runner-up. Sort of, I mean, they're both from the same place. They, I know, Erik, that there's been a lot of talk about Fjord's eligibility online. Everybody's trying to figure out, is it 50% in English or not? Who knows? We'll figure that out once the tallies come out.
A lot of conversation about that.
But I do think, though, with its strong critical presence and now having the Palm here, I do think that it has positioned itself kind of like how we thought it might be, which is a top contender for Neon. And it's very much, I do believe, after seeing the films, their best shot at landing any awards traction from these Cannes titles. I'm
so glad that my pre-Cannes predictions had Fjord at number 4 in Best Picture. I feel pretty good about that now.
Yeah, makes you feel really good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
But But
What
yeah,
do you?
even if it is over 50%, I don't think that it is, but even if it is, that doesn't matter for this movie because it's going to be an above the line contender regardless. And the only
Yeah,
thing it'll miss then is international feature film.
yeah, and it very much feels like a film that could be, obviously the both leads. The screenplay feels very much like a screenplay winner and a big top tier contender for that. Obviously, Manju for director. We've talked about that already this year as somebody that could break through with the international branch. Cinematography. The movie looks absolutely gorgeous. The way the
Mm-hmm.
movie's edited is very sleek, I think, as well. So it could look at a 6 to 7 nomination, and then obviously if it gets into international, then you're talking about, maybe 7 or 8 nominations there. Um,
No,
so
no supporting nominations though.
no supporting,
We'll just
yeah,
say that
no,
there will not be any supporting
no, there
nominations
will
for this
not be.
movie.
Unless of course it's for their lawyer that plays their neighbor, who I think is pretty good in the film. But again, I don't think that there will be too much of a emphasis because I do think that Rinsva and Stan will be the ones leading the charge for this film throughout the circuit. But what do you guys think? I mean, Sophia, what do you think about this win for Fjord? I mean, it is a pretty it was one of the sort of chalk picks that a lot of people were predicting. I think a lot of people are also predicting more Sebastian Stan to win, and I think that was a lot of more fan stuff online rather than actual like people that can read the tea leaves about Christian Mungiu winning his second Palm, his first in 20 years. So, what do you think about this now for its play going forward in the season?
Yeah, so much like the zone of interest and sentimental value that have come before, Minotaur is the queen of the Sophia curse this year, I'll call it, where my favorite film at the festival ends up getting the Grand Prix, even though I want it to win the Palme d'Or. That's okay. I think Fjord is still a great film, and I think it's going to like do really well this season. Obviously, very excited for another year of Renata Reinsve on red carpets, at film festivals, on the award circuit. But I think, like I was talking about before, I think with um, just the general, how I feel about Fjord and how people will talk about Fjord, like it has a lot of talking points that I think, will keep it in the conversation. So I feel like it is here to stay, and it just further cemented that, I think, for Neon too. I'm really hopeful though that they're able to balance Fjord and All of a Sudden because last year I think they did that with Sentimental Value and with The Secret Agent, being able to get Wagner Moura in, having that film really do well as well throughout the season. So I really hope that there is hope for Virginia Fira and Tao Okamoto, who I think give fabulous performances. I really want to see them mentioned and winning some awards or getting some nominations throughout the season. But I think Fjord is a good winner. Again, wouldn't be my pick. That would be Minotaur, just because of how complex it is and how it stayed with me. But I think this is a great win, all things considered, with what we saw in the competition section. But I think it's like I said, I think it's here to stay.
I think so too. I think that this is a great winner. I think that I know that a lot of people wanted Minotaur to win. It felt like it was becoming the popular pick amongst all the critics. Even just everybody in general. I think that there is an urgency that lies inside that film. I do think though that there is something about that reaction that all of us were having while we were watching it. I was kind of looking at y'all, and we were all looking at each other as we were watching Fjord. And I do think that is something that like picks up on a jury that they, whether they are parents or not. Like this is a very much like a reaction movie, and I think it's very topical, and I think it's also extremely relevant. It's dealings of extremism, and I think that this was one of those where I was watching, I was just like, man, if they can stick the landing, which I think they do by the end of the film, this is going to be a movie where everybody's going to be sitting in that room just being like,
I
they're going
love
to
the
be
final shot.
they're going to be frustrated by what happens in the film, and there's no way that it has that lingering factor for itself. And I do think that, like, Minotaur, it might be a little bit more like, I wouldn't say divisive, but it might not, some people might not get it nearly as much as others. And I think Fjord is a little bit more straightforward when it comes to that and what it's trying to do there. And so that's what, I kind of felt like that maybe there was like that little bit of tug and pull. I don't know if there was a little bit of like somebody was saying online, I don't remember who it was, like Director Park being like, I kind of made that film, Minotaur, you know what I mean, with my last film in a way,
But
with like
Minotaur's better.
I wouldn't go,
Sorry.
I wouldn't agree with that, but to that point,
Okay.
By a large degree, it's better.
I don't,
But yes.
but I think that, there is something about when I watched Fjord that I was like, this feels like the type of film that creatives and people in that room would really gravitate towards. And it's going to be one that I think already has that built-in passion. We talk about that word a lot when we talk about going to later festivals, not only just winning the Palm for itself, but having Renato Rensva, Sebastian Stan, having that already built in, those two actors with recognizable names and brands. And the type of films that I think Renata picks generally gets people to gravitate towards them at festivals. We saw that last year with Sentimental Value, and that'll carry forward. And then Q&As and conversations throughout the season are going to really drive this thing. And being in an election year as well too, I think that benefits this movie as well too, to have those ongoing dialogues when most of those Q&As are going to happen here. And those ongoing frustrations of like extremism is not just a American issue. It is a issue that is global right now and very precedent. So I think that bodes well for them. I would love to see all of a sudden, and those two actresses who are absolutely fantastic and deserve that prize. I would love to see them get recognition and through the Academy. Neon's in this once again tricky goddamn situation where they have a million films and they're not going to be able to get everything in. We kind of figured last year that they, because they had, it was just an accident, The Secret Agent and Sentimental Value, and then they even had what was it, Surratt and a bunch of other things. Really only two films rise to the top. So I do think Fjord is that film at the top for them and will be their top tier contender. It will just be interesting to see what is the second film that goes along with it. Doesn't mean that it doesn't have like 2 or 3 or 4 international spots again, which it very much could do that. It's about finding, I think, the other films that could go along for bigger campaigns at this point. Though I did think that the Minotaur director's speech at the festival, was able to hear an untranslated version, because he was because they dubbed the French over the other language. I was able to hear and read it, and it was a very, very strong statement. And I do think that it'll play really well when it gets to some, I don't know if it'll go to Telluride. It'll probably go to TIFF, I would assume.
It would do very well at Telluride.
I think it will. I don't know. I just don't know if it's going there or not.
Yeah.
I assume it will because it's a prize winner now. And I think it'll do really well in New York, and the regional festivals as well too. So, and then close. And I mean, La Bola Negra.
Good news quickly.
Yeah.
The good news about Minotaur quickly about I know people were worried about, this is obviously a film that Russia wouldn't select, or that obviously wouldn't, but it's a co-production of France, Latvia, and Germany, and it was filmed in Latvia. So we don't know obviously like what country could pick it yet or where it could be a selection, but hopefully it'll be able to get in there without winning the Palm.
Hopefully,
and
so.
we have yeah. I mean, the
new rule.
The new rule only benefits Fjord.
Right.
Because you have to win the top award. So
yeah.
I mean, I kind of wish Minotaur had been able to do that and jump that hurdle. But I think it also speaks to the jury not like thinking like that, which is good because we can trap ourselves into being thinking that other people are more obsessive about that kind of thing when they are not.
Yeah. I mean, I think that both of them were in a really good position. I think Minotaur, I mean, we don't really need the country to submit it anymore. We don't need that. So only
if it's a top award winner, though.
Only
if it won the Palm, we wouldn't have to worry about it, but we do.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that'll be tricky, but like to your point there, Sophia, its funding comes from other places, and it was filmed in, its source material is different. So I don't
Yeah,
have it.
this
I
is
don't
what
think
they
it'll
did
be.
with Accident
It was
and
Accident
All We
last year. It
Imagine Is
was yeah,
Light.
Yeah.
exactly.
They're
We're
constantly having to do that with
Yeah.
Amelia Perez.
dissident
You know what I mean?
directors.
Like yeah, like the funding comes from various places. So I'm not
Hmm.
worried about that. I think that obviously all of a sudden will do well. I'm interested about Fatherland too is another interesting one as well because there is a bunch of English in that film as well too, and it's a short film, so like you have to really kind of see where that plays out. I mean, La Bola Negra, I mean, is very much a film that I think will do extremely well and could be
That will be going into my top 10 for the next predictions.
yeah,
Absolutely.
same also for Coward too. Like there's these awards films. No,
Mm,
well, I think that for
no, I don't. It'll be
for
Belgium's
international
pick,
feature
and then
for
that's what
international.
it'll get.
You don't think that it'll stand a chance to get in the five, even after
N-
Close got in?
no, I said it'll
Oh,
be
okay.
it'll be in that. It'll
Yeah,
be
yeah,
in
yeah.
that, but I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's
Oh
gonna
no, I
really
don't think
break
it'll be
out
above the play. I mean,
outside of it
La Bola
because
Negra is
movie.
the film that is being promised as the sort of above the
Yeah,
line
but I'm
player.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at it based on who has what, and
Yeah.
movie will be using Fatherland as their main push, pretty
Yeah, much
obviously.
so, especially with Sandra Hüller
That
leading
performance
that.
is so good.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
also the cinematography, the screenplay, the lead actor performance.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a real and Pawlikowski being a previous Oscar nominee as well. Like there's a lot that it could carry. But it is very interesting about Fjord is that like it was it had that palm win for about 5 minutes before people started trying to undercut it or undermine it. It'll be that it is that type of film where I do think that there will be, and we mentioned this earlier, but there are going to be people that do not respond to it, and I think it's going to kind of be like telling on themselves a little bit of like, well, why don't you actually like it? Other than like some superficial shit. Like I do think it'll be very interesting. I think it definitely puts itself in a situation where I don't think we're gonna have a one battle sinners type of battle again this year. As much as there's these big films that are going to be coming out, I do think that this bodes well for something like Fjord winning the Palm because even though it does have movie stars attached to it, it is a drama. It's a courtroom drama. It's a family drama, and I think that might be a movie like this with big topics and talking points and discussions and having those, like you said, Sophia, it's going to probably be the most talked about film, maybe at the film festivals, sight unseen of the things that haven't played yet, but of the things that carry over. So, and Manju is going to be somebody I think that you have to put in a director five. He's his those go back and watch the press conferences, his speech there when he won the Palm is a very interesting figure. And I don't think that I think that there were some people that were talking about him making a disingenuous film. When you hear him talk, there's no disingenuousness about it. He's trying to make a very hard film that I think many could thread the needle, and I think he ultimately succeeds there. And it'll be very interesting to see how the film plays because that was the interesting thing about last year is once we got to the film festivals, obviously we knew Sentimental Value was going to play extremely well, but it was of those other two neon titles, what played well, what did the audiences linger towards, and it started to become The Secret Agent more so than it was just an accident. And obviously having the Brazilian component helps a lot there, right? So, any thoughts else you guys have on these winners and on Cannes before we start wrapping it up?
Just quickly, Eric, I know you mentioned this with Paper Tiger and people advocating for it. I do wonder if, I don't want to give like airtime to online discourse so much, but I will say that I wonder if when we get into critics awards, if in international feature categories, in director, in picture places, we will see support for things like All of a Sudden or Minotaur that did not win the Palm. Just critics kind of saying like we wanted something else. I think that is it's possible that we'll see that, but in a way that we did also with Sentimental Value last year. Like that wasn't, winning all of the critics international prizes, at the beginning, like we maybe thought, but I think that I'm not going to call it, I think backlash to the win feels strong, but I think, if there are critics who aren't as high on it as they are on something, like Minotaur or All of a Sudden or Fatherland or something else, they might, put their flag in for something else instead. So it'll be interesting, I think, how the conversation around that category in particular changes throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think the Cannes Film Festival and Palm wins we have seen, even if it wasn't neon, but it is neon, those are proven bona fides now. And we're going to see Best Picture nominees come from these Cannes winners pretty consistently now. It's a little less so from the grand prize wins. There's like 3 since the last 10 years. But obviously the Palm is kind of the way to go. The jury prize, Emilia Perez, that's really the last. That's the only in like a decade it's not really that kind of category that does that. But yeah, I don't know if these, obviously it's very early and we still have Venice, to give us other titles, but Cannes is really the kickoff, and these international titles that we're going to see at the end of the year are going to be coming from Cannes. Oh, I did want to mention my other favorite thing of the festival that I saw was Barbra Streisand's video message for her honorary Palm, which was absolutely extraordinary. It was directed down to just the most minute detail. Incredible. Short film, documentary, Oscar, live action, whatever. Give it to her.
Just that shot of
Perfect
Isabelle
lighting.
Huppert looking right straight at her while she's talking, like mother looking at mother. You know what I mean? Like
Pulitzer, give it Nobel Prize, give it everything.
What you got to do. No notes there for real, Erik. I think that, to your point, to both of your point, like it's not really to give any of that sort of discourse online. It people are going to be just happy with everything. They'll be unhappy if you hung them with a new rope. You know what I mean? But I think that you got a lot of people here that are really going to. We obviously don't have every critic in the world that has seen this film yet, and yet a lot of people online just kind of like, that weren't even at Cannes that were upset at this win. And so I think that, to your point, Sophia, like there were a lot of people in critics groups that, that might want to go ahead and champion, Minotaur or All of a Sudden, but then they might see this film and they might be like, actually, this is the best thing. So you never know once the full group of people have seen it, this is, again, it's a select few people and not they're all within the critics groups. And there's also this deliberation and and the long lunches that happen with New York and Los Angeles that go along with it as well. So it remains to be seen there, but I think that Neon has a giant hit on their hands. I think that they've got a sure number one. I think that Netflix now has their international film, even though they have the Lee Chang-dong film, so that might hurt that a little bit there in the long run. Yeah. But who knows?
We didn't really talk about La Bola Negra too much, just because Ryan, you and I haven't seen it, but that is definitely lurking.
That is
what we know Netflix can do.
I mean, what they did with Emilia Perez, right?
I think it can be a huge player.
Yeah, absolutely.
Below the Line is going to be crazy for that movie.
And if that's the case too, I think that then, because it's not coming from Neon, I mean, like Netflix would have that. If those are two films that break through into the top tier, into the best picture, I don't know.
It's also gay, but not gay, because there's not like gay sex in it.
Oh, okay.
But it does have more penises than any movie of the festival,
which does have, sex in it.
It was great.
But like, no, I think that like then for it to break through, like for a third international film to break through, that would be very tough. But I mean, again, like, that would, there's always like a critic's pick, I think, like the best film of the year ends up going there. And to Sophia's point, I do think that that might be the Minotaur pick rather than the all of a sudden pick. I could very much see that being the film that critics champion. I could honestly see Minotaur being a film that wins the best film overall at New York, if they want to champion it that much.
Would
Um,
love that.
but then again, and it could just be international, and that's it for it. Who knows? But I do think that those two are the. You're right, Sophia. Like, you cannot underestimate Netflix when they that have purchased things here in the past. They've done pretty well with themselves. This is a much more sophisticated film and beloved film than like Left-Handed Girl and Nouvelle Vague. This is a prize winner, and when they've had that last one was Amelia Perez, and barring some tweets, they were looking at a lot of Oscar gold in their future there. So they have that to go along with their American titles, and we were kind of wondering what is going to be Netflix's big title, that they are going to push this season. The Bola Negra might be that, because I mean, look what they did with Amelia Perez, All Quiet on the Western Front. They've done well for themselves. So you guys are right. Like, that's very much one to keep an eye on. Okay, well, that's Can, and we can put that to bed, and we'll be talking about a lot of these titles, like Sophia said, for the next 6 to 8 months, to some might not even come out for another year. And it'll be great to talk about those and see how they all shake out in the race later in the year. Sophia, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you both for another great can trip. If anyone is listening, thank you, festival volunteers. Thank you, American Pavilion workers who let me charge my phone and gave me Coke Zero. Thank you, everyone in Cannes. It was a wonderful trip. You can find me on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Sophia Sim. You can find my podcast, Oscar Wilde, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can find my Cannes coverage at AwardsWatch.
Erik Anderson.
I want to give a shout out to the bartenders at the Majestic Hotel for making a fantastic
Yes.
martini, as well as for
Made a killer
the
Paloma.
women doing runway walks in the middle of the restaurant in their Timu ass dresses that look like they cost $10. But confidence goes a really long way. And these women had only confidence because there was nothing else going on in these outfits. But I was living for it, had a great time. Yeah. And boy, the British bride and groom group that I met and partied with, shout out to you guys. A lot of fun. And some good movies too. So, there's also that part of Cannes. You wouldn't know. A lot of people don't really know that there's movies there during the festival as well. And you can find me at awardswatch.com, on Twitter, making a mess, at awardswatch Erik, and then awardswatch everywhere else. And we still have more reviews coming out this week, some late ones, and it's fine. It's okay, including mine. But yeah.
Well, you can find all my work and all of my can coverage at awardswatch.com, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky at Ryan McQuade 77. I want to give a shout out to the lady sitting next to me during the man of his time screening that was on her phone on Instagram for the first hour of the entire film, trying to find the right music for the photo that she was editing, and then pieced out for the last hour and a half. And we also want to shout out the guy sitting next to her that looked at me, chuckled as we then finished the rest of that film. Want to shout out all the volunteers, and all the great venues. And I want to shout out the Olympia too for being some of the comfiest seats I've sat in quite some time. And the best pastries, the best sandwiches in the world, led by like Sophia said, sponsored by Coke Zero, because like that's just going to get you through the rest of this festival. If you like podcasts, we have the Director Watch podcast. Now that Cannes over, we're back in the middle of Nolan's summer. This week, we will be talking about The Prestige with our good guest, Jake Tropila. So it should be a really fun episode. Always great to have Jake on, one of our favorites here at AwardsWatch.com. iTunes and Spotify 5-star reviews, we greatly appreciate it. While you're over on the website, sign up for the newsletter. It's the best place to get all of our news, reviews, interviews, all the Cannes review coverage that we have left, and more. And also, Erik's going to have post-Cannes predictions coming up soon. So can't wait to see how Cannes has shaken all of that. Next week, we will be back. We will be doing an Oscar retrospective. We will be covering the films of 2011 next week. That's right. The Artist is up. Speaking of Cannes, The Artist is up, and all that fun stuff. And it's going to be a great show. All of us doing a retrospective is never a bad thing after Cannes. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.